Hello, I'm Ayen Dangbior and you're watching Our Voices. Today we're taking a closer look at violence against women and girls. This month, activists around the world wrapped the annual 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence. And while observers point to progress made on this front in the past few years, experts, including United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, now says cases are on the rise due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Millions of women are pushed further into poverty by the COVID-19 crisis, and all forms of violence against them are rising. In this context, the global community must continue to build on the momentum we have created to prioritize the voices, experiences, and needs of women and girls. We must take into account the needs of women who experience violence, particularly those who face multiple and intersecting forms of violence and discrimination. This means emerging from this crisis with women's leadership front and center in constructing the solutions we need.
As part of the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence, our VOA Hausa colleague Grace Alheri Abdu hosted a town hall in the northern Nigerian city of Kaduna. Kaduna State Deputy Governor Hadiza Sabua Balarabe discussed what authorities are doing to inform local communities about convicted sex offenders.
The government has a register that is similar to the raping and shaming register in some countries. What we plan to do with the register is to have the names of rapists so that the world knows this man or this woman is a rapist. Wherever the person goes, people will see him or her and people will run away from them. The same way the rapist harasses and torments his or her victim's life, he or she will be shamed.
Now, at the VOA Town Hall, Kaduna State Commissioner for Human Services and Social Development, Hafsat Mohammed Baba, said that compared to 2019, there has been a nearly 50% increase in the number of reported rapes against children during coronavirus.
The cases continue to increase this year during the coronavirus pandemic. From January to October of this year, we have recorded 933 cases of rape against children. This is a worrisome situation. And we as government have introduced numerous measures to protect people from sexual assault. In the area of laws, for 16 years before the coming of this government, the Child Rights Bill, which sought to protect children, was not signed into law. This government didn't waste time to act on the bill. We changed the bill's name to Child Welfare and Protection and passed it into law. We also established a sexual assault referral center, and because of the success recorded by the center, the government created 4 additional ones across the state to provide medical consultation to victims of sexual assault and to also assist victims with psychosocial therapy.
Nigerian lawmakers in the northwestern state of Kaduna have approved a measure to castrate men convicted of raping children under the age of 14. The controversial law comes in the wake of public outrage over the rising number of rape cases in recent months. But while supporters praise the new law as a move to defend women and children, some human rights activists say it is too harsh and may even fail to deter predators. Timothy Obiezu has more from Kaduna State.
This 13-year-old girl now lives in a safe house. 1 month ago, Amina, which is not her real name, was raped by 3 men from her neighborhood.
They have shops in front of our house. I was hanging around the shops. I didn't want to go inside the house because my stepmom was beating me. They called me and gave me a drink and raped me.
Amina says she's even more upset because her father, a police officer, dismissed the case after being bribed by the men.
I feel bad that my dad did that.
But Amina's case has been reopened with help from Samira Mudibo, a Kaduna-based activist who is one of the coordinators of the state-led campaign against rape. The 3 men have been rearrested and are awaiting judgment. They could be among the first to be surgically castrated under a new law punishing rapists of children under the age of 14.
Anyone that could rape a child does not deserve to live. And I actually stand by that because it takes a monster to be able to. There are a lot of things that come with sexual violation of kids. It's not just about the emotional damages. There are physical damages and sometimes for the rest of their lives.
But human rights lawyer Okoro Kelechi argues the new law is too harsh and may fail to address the issue.
I don't think surgical castration, for me, addresses the root problem of rape, because rape occurs more in the mind than in the act. Okay, I like to look at it as something that is more psychological. Is beyond. It goes beyond the sex. So it's not about the utensil or the tool used to achieve sexual pleasure.
Over 400 cases of rape were reported in Kaduna State during the coronavirus lockdown, according to local aid agencies. Throughout Nigeria, cases also soared, forcing authorities to declare a state of emergency over the issue. It is not clear whether many more states in Nigeria will adopt this new law, but activists like Madibo say they will remain vigilant to ensure children are protected and offenders are held accountable. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Kaduna, Nigeria.
Nigerian activists are calling for better tracking of sex offenders after the number of rapes tripled during the COVID-19 pandemic. But as Ifeok Itang reports from Jos, Nigeria, the social shame of rape often leads to silencing victims instead of prosecuting offenders.
Madeline Sambo's 4-year-old daughter was raped twice by one of her neighbors, the latest attack in September. Her community silenced the first rape by negotiating a settlement with the rapist. Sambo refused to take the money, and after the second attack, she went to the police and had the rapist arrested.
I said to them, if you will be silent about rape, under God, I will never keep quiet.
Nigerian activists say the social shame of rape and sexist views often lead to silencing victims instead of prosecuting offenders.
So we need a cultural, a paradigm shift when it comes to our cultural mindset. And now we have a masculinist culture which promotes hegemonic masculinity, where the male is seen as more important, of more value, and has more rights and privileges assigned and ascribed by culture. This has to be addressed.
The United Nations Deputy Secretary General visiting Nigeria this month noted rape cases had tripled during the COVID-19 lockdown to more than 3,600. The UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, says almost half the victims were girls under age 18.
So that's The statistics we have show that about 1,657 children were affected negatively. They experienced violence-related forms of, experiences. And out of this number, 1,501 of these children are girls, and they mostly experienced sexual violence.
Nigeria's Governors Forum in June declared a state of emergency on sexual violence against girls and women and called for setting up sex offenders registries.
Data gap. It is very serious data gap, in which even when we have data, it's often disjointed, not linked up, not joined up to one another, and we need an integrated nationwide database, which this sex offenders register promises to give.
Nigeria a year ago launched its first sex offender registry, but local media report that despite the declared emergency, only 3 of 36 states have so far set up registries. Ifyok Etang for VOA News, Jos, Nigeria.
Kenyan authorities and aid agencies say rape and sexual abuse cases against girls have increased since the start of the pandemic restrictions. And they say in most cases, relatives are the offenders. As Mohammed Yusuf reports, some safe shelters in Nairobi are overwhelmed by girls who need a safe shelter away from people meant to care for them.
Kenyan children have extra time off since schools closed in March due to the coronavirus pandemic. That is making them more vulnerable to sexual predators. This mother of 5 says a 20-year-old man targeted her teenage daughter at home and got her pregnant.
I started interrogating my daughter. She started to explain how the man will come in the house while I am away, give her 10 to 20 shillings, and take her to another dark building near our place.
Some of the abused children end up in a safe house like this in central Nairobi. The center hosts 26 girls. 17 of them came here between March and July. Florence Kerr, who runs the house, says there are many more girls who need a safe home.
We can only take the number that we can really manage. It's so sad that we sometimes deny cases at the gate. So we just say that we can't take them in because we are full.
Kenya's Ministry of Health says it has received at least 5,000 sexual violence cases across the country. 65% of them involve girls below the age of 18, many of whom live in poverty. Officials say in many cases the perpetrators are close to the victims do not believe the abuse is a crime.
They don't know that this is a punishable thing or is a punishable crime. But then now they accept just because their parents cannot afford to provide certain items.
Andiso says she worries that her children are more vulnerable to abuse if schools remain closed. Mohammed Yusuf for VOA News, Nairobi.
And we have to take a short break, but coming up later in the program, a look at how the pandemic is exacerbating violence among marginalized groups.
Our Voices is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation. Welcome back here with Our Voices. Today we're discussing gender-based violence. While Kenya is acknowledging that COVID-19 restrictions are fueling the rise of gender-based violence, the country is less open on abuses against the LGBTQ community. Homosexuality is illegal in Kenya, and activists say many are afraid to report abuse or get medical help because of stigma. Rael Mbor explains from Nairobi.
28-year-old Rebecca Adhiambo's family shunned her after discovering 2 years ago that she is a lesbian. when her neighbors found out, she was insulted, evicted, and in September, attacked.
I was from the market. I was going home to prepare a meal after a long day of doing casual work in Eastlay. Someone approached me from behind, a crowd gathered, and some were shouting that I should leave the neighborhood. They started beating me and threw away all that I bought.
The 34-year-old Said Athmani documents cases of attacks on the LGBTQ community. Since the COVID-19 outbreak in March, he says there's been a jump in cases of abuse.
Curfew is in place. People are told not to go to work, so they have to stay within their localities. So you find in our locality here in Pumwani, when people notice and recognize that in our neighborhood we have LGBTQ plus persons, they start to abuse them. They start to victimize them. Yeah, in a way that they feel that they don't want them in this community.
The Gay and Lesbian Coalition of Kenya says during the pandemic, they have logged up to 10 attacks per month on the LGBTQ community. Kenya's government raised an alarm on increased cases of gender-based violence, but has offered no targeted help for LGBTQs.
Inclusivity is still foreign to most of these mainstream organizations, and they try to sideline us because they feel like we don't deserve to be in those spaces. We don't deserve to get the opportunities or the resources that are available because of who we are or how we identify.
Kenya is considered to be among the most progressive African countries, but the High Court in 2019 upset activists by upholding a colonial-era law that punishes homosexual acts with up to 14 years in prison.
It's been really difficult to engage the government in LGBT conversations, especially when you want to really, bring the case out that you have a section of the population that is really suffering.
When asked to speak on LGBTQ abuse, Kenya's Ministry of Gender and Social Services referred a reporter to the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, UNFPA. Rael Ombor, for VOA News, Nairobi.
When a journalist in Benin announced on Facebook that she was tired of sexual harassment in the workplace, her post went viral. Angela Capiejo has sparked ongoing discussions in and beyond the West African country's newsrooms. Now, she's encouraging other women to come forward and help fight the problem. Xavier Fagbohun reports from Benin.
Angela Capiejo, a health journalist from Benin's national television station, ORTB, set off a national dialogue with a Facebook post in May. She wrote, "Sexual harassment in the workplace, even in this day and age, is still tolerated, leading to humiliation of all kinds and lower self-esteem, rape, sexual harassment, and mental abuse. I am tired of it." So she started a web-based association called Don't Be Afraid that serves as an online support group.
After my denunciation, I observed that 3 out of 5 women were harassed in the workplace. Don't Be Afraid is a nonprofit association that would like to be a listening center for all these people. All these girls who are harassed in professional and student environments, to provide them with psychological and legal support as well.
The association's Facebook and Twitter pages are gaining followers. The outlet is giving internet users a place to express themselves, to challenge social pressures, and to bear witness. Women leaders say the pages are sparking a conversation.
The young girl in African society, at least in Benin, is for the most part afraid of social pressure, afraid of what will be said. I already find it beneficial that there is this movement, not to be afraid. We must pray that it does not run out of steam, that it does not die, that it continues over time.
Advocates for women's rights say they hope Angela Capiejo's speech will lead to change.
Even if it's no longer zero harassment, we're sure the rate will go down. Angela's denunciation must change something and will change something. In the professional environment, the situation has already changed.
In early May, after meeting with PEJA, President Patrice Talon condemned sexual harassment. During a work session with public media officials and some members of his administration, Talon announced plans to improve the working environment for women and to create ways to report misconduct without fear of reprisal. For Xavier Fagboron in Cotonou, I'm Gaby Dorsil in Washington.
Now we have to take a short break, but coming up, how are artists using their talent to raise awareness on gender-based violence? That answer after the break.
This is a country that I chose to become a citizen. I didn't have to become a citizen. I chose to become a citizen.
I feel like America gave me an opportunity to pursue my passion as an artist.
I really believe that clean eating is a way to a more successful life or a happier life, if you want to put it that way.
One of the things that helps me wake up every morning is doing better, being better.
We grew up poor, and so I'm always focused on helping the working class be able to have a more comfortable lifestyle.
I'm passionate about doing justice every day. I oftentimes say that justice is a verb, not a noun. You know, I believe in action and moving the ball forward.
Welcome back here with Our Voices, and we're taking another look at Nigeria, where a visual artist in the conservative northern region is on a mission to challenge some stereotypes about women. These include the notion that certain trades are for men only, and that women who venture into them are bound to fail. The 25-year-old artist Miriam Umar Maijida told VOA Hausa she also uses her paintings to demand justice for victims of sexual violence. Haruna Shehu reports.
Mariam Umar Maijida is a Nigerian artist who has always used her talents to highlight various aspects of what it means to be human.
My paintings cover different aspects of human endeavor. Some are for decoration, some on education, culture, politics, and some are about respect for parents and women.
But recently, her work has become a call to action to stop sexual abuse against women and children.
I have been making paintings to highlight sexual violence, and I have done more recently because of the surge in reported cases of terrible rape, including that of a female student who was raped and murdered while studying in a church. There was also the gang rape of a 12-year-old girl, as well as the rape of a 6-month-old baby and a 7-month-old. Those are the incidents behind paintings like this one.
She incorporates culturally significant fabric and colors into her work.
This one in the middle shows an educated woman, both religious and Western education. That is why I placed her on these books. The paintings here shows a woman with her mouth sealed to show how most rape victims don't get justice, even after reporting the assault to the police.
The work is proactive and challenging, but Megida has always been willing to challenge the norms of society that often break down along gender roles.
I was the only female student from northern Nigeria in our art class. There was no one to mingle with. My friends were going to their classes in groups while I was just alone. I was going to lectures alone and doing my assignments alone. And because art was seen as mainly a male course, most especially among Southerners, some people looked at me with contempt, thinking I will never succeed in it.
But she has succeeded and along the way become an inspiration to other female artists.
Now a lot of people are contacting me, sending messages on a daily basis. Some calling my parents to express their delight about my paintings and what I am doing. In fact, there are people who are bringing their children to me to teach them painting.
She says she is a living example that women can take control of their own lives.
My message to other women is for them to know that being entrepreneurial with skills for self-reliance is very important. Women entrepreneurs are more respected in our society. And that is why I want them to take it seriously.
Women's rights activists in Senegal say gender-based violence has increased during COVID-19. To raise awareness for the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, this Senegalese artist exhibits her own experience. Estelle Njanju reports from Dakar.
47 years old Senegalese painter Dayart, who only wishes to be identified by her artist name, is a survivor of gender-based violence. The mother of two was born with a disability that made it hard for her to protect herself from her violent husband. Dayart divorced and uses her paintings to show the attacks and social stigma against abused women.
I identify with these paintings. I don't take the suffering of another, but I take my own suffering. I'm trying to represent on a canvas. So, through my brushes, my painting, as a committed artist, it is my duty to raise awareness through my paintings. But it is also my duty to denounce.
Activists say gender-based violence has increased globally during COVID-19 restrictions, and Senegal is no exception. Activist Didi created violence against women in Senegal after a close friend was killed by her husband. During the COVID-19 lockdown, Didi's website has been flooded with messages from women in need.
All of the cases I have received are where women are being kicked out of their homes by their husbands just to make life hard for them just before curfew.
To raise awareness of the abuse of this year's International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women on November 25, Dayart is showing her work at Dakar's House of Urban Culture. Estelle Njanju for VOA News, Dakar.
And that's all from us today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get more from our voices. Until next time, good day.